Tyson Fury should fight Tony Bellew en route to biggest fight in history with Anthony Joshua. Tyson Fury should battle Tony Bellew on his comeback trail toward the biggest fight in history with Anthony Joshua, according to manager Matt Macklin. The undefeated Gypsy King is set to return to the ring this summer after 2.5 years out battling injury, depression, drug use and his waistline. But the 29-year-old is back in the heavyweight mix and has dropped around 7 stone after rediscovering his love for the sport and focus. And NTK Global boss Macklin, who Fury regularly thanks on his social media for aiding his return, says a domestic clash with the Bomber would tee up the Edge clash perfectly. Macklin said, "Anthony Joshua's stardom is sky high, selling out Wembley and Cardiff twice. I think the heavyweight division has caught fire since then. Tyson has been unfortunate by not being a part of the scene and he must have been on the sidelines in absolute frustration. He believes he is the best. In beating Vladimir Klitschko he is the man who beat the man when he was the man, and you cannot really argue with on that. Joshua versus Fury, if it can happen down the line, will probably be the biggest fight of all time. But Tyson cannot walk back into a world title fight. Someone like Tony Bellew, if he beats David Haye on May 5th, would not be a bad fight. Bellew has been very active and in big fights. If he comes through David Haye again then maybe that fight makes sense for Tony Bellew and it certainly makes sense for Fury. The Bellew fight would sell." Macklin has had to help rebuild Fury's career, confidence and reputation after everything unraveled after that amazing night in Dusseldorf in November 2015. The Gypsy King wrenched the IBF, WBA and WBO belts from Klitschko in his adopted German home and drove home that night instead of celebrating. But he was cruelly stripped of the IBF belt just days later and swiftly spiraled into a blur of depression and drug use that cost him all of his belts. Old Testament views and misguided comments left him public enemy no. 1 for a while. But his status has rocketed in his ring absence. After George Groves' win over Chris Eubank Jr. in Manchester in November, thousands of fans followed Fury home and chanted his name all the way back to his hotel. And Macklin, who lost 3 thrilling middleweight world title shots in a brave career, says fans have reconnected with Fury's bloke-next-door persona. He said, "People appreciate honesty and some people in the public eye are manufactured and scripted and he is anything but. What you see is what you get and he does say whatever comes into his head. If you are politically correct then he is a nightmare. I remember years ago when he was fighting on Channel 5 and you could hear the interviews on there were always terrified about what he was going to say. He is authentic and people like that. Social media has changed things because now everyone has a platform. On a personal level, I think he is hilarious, and he is a character. He is a likable fellow who has said some crazy stuff. When it is all said and done I think people can see that he is a nice guy and he wants a fair crack at the whip. Some of his problems he did bring on himself and he has held his hands up. But he is a nice fella, he is a talented fighter and he is welcomed back in the heavyweight mix.